Good morning. I'm here outside. I'm at Thunderbolt area, the marina, the river and boats, and up the river a little bit is area where shrimp boats are, and you could come and get fresh catch, and people would come from fishing, and you'd hear about the one that always got away. Well, today I'm continuing the series on Shane Stanford's 7 Next Words of Christ. And this one he deals with John chapter 21, the scene where some of the disciples went back to the Sea of Galilee and to resume their life of fishing. And it was then they came in from fishing one night and looked up, and there was a stranger on the shore, and asking them, "Have you caught any fish?" And they said, "No, no." He said, "Well, put your nets on the other side of the boat." And sure enough, they did, and the net was so full they could not pull it in without sinking the boat. And John, being perceptive, probably had the younger eyes of the crowd, looked up and said, that's the Lord." And Peter's response was to jump right in the water and swim to shore to be with Jesus. This whole scene, Shane Stanford builds up and talks about the breakfast they had around the campfire there, and the conversation that must have occurred, them telling and remembering stories of people and places that they've been in their 3-year adventure. But it was on this time that Jesus then turned to Peter and asked him some questions. He said, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" And you notice he called him Simon, not Peter, but his old name, his given name was Simon. And Peter said, "Yes, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." But then a moment passed again, and Jesus turned and said, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" And Peter again said, "You know everything. You know I love you." And each time Jesus said, then feed my sheep and care for my sheep. And then finally the third time, Jesus asked again, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Now Peter probably is getting a little upset. You know Peter. And he said, "Lord, I love you. Yes, I love you." And then he told him again to feed his sheep. And then just a moment later, he turned to Peter and he said, "Follow me." Now, the disciples around the campfire probably heard that this is going somewhere different, that what the conversation they're having has changed. And what they were hearing was Jesus again asking Peter to be his follower, to be his disciple. And it was that moment that they realized that things were different. Things were changing. Shane shares about a time when he was taking his daughter to school, and the daughter asked, "Dad, how did you meet Mom?" And so Shane shared the conversation in the car about how they met, and that brought weeks of bringing out scrapbooks and bringing out photo albums and wedding albums, and from that conversation sharing the story of their family together. And Shane says that's the way it is with us in our faith, that whenever we're together, a body of God, a family of God gathered together, that we should always bring life to the story, that we should realize how big our story is, how many have come before us, and how many are going to come after us. Shane concludes this story in talking about doing a revival in a town that had a lot of conflict and racial tension. And it was his final sermon. He talked about coming to the table, that the Lord's table is always got room for it. It's never full, and that all are invited to come. Part of his sermon, he called different people from that congregation forward to the table. And then at the end, challenged them to go and bring someone back to the table to share in the table time. And they did, and it looked like a good group. But someone from the back could have said that the table is not complete. And it was a young, middle-aged, young African-American man who stood up and came to the table. And Shane said immediately an elderly white man stood up and gave up his seat to the man to come and sit at the table. And sure enough, that happened. And then another who had braces on his legs came forward, and he too took a place. A young woman who they knew in the community had a baby out of wedlock in 16. She came forward and sat at the table. Shane said that's the way it needs to be in the body of faith, that there's always room for someone else. And when we're together, we're to always bring life and invite others to come with us. I pray that your day can be a great day to go fishing. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.